and this is Kaylani with the Wild Wahine, and this is your astrological forecast for this week. So we're kicking off the month of June with so many transits and ingresses and full moons and new moons and all kinds of stuff. This is a jam-packed month. So we're going to take it week to week as we always do, and I'm giving you essentially 3 of the major aspects that I picked out for this week that I think will most affect you. If you want more details about the different aspects and how it's going to individually affect you in your chart, because for everyone the planets are falling in different places and different houses, you can definitely book a reading at www.thewildwahine.as.me. But I'm going to give you this wonderful information so that you can use it so you can make fantastic choices in your life. So let's start off with the first thing that's happening, and that is Venus is ingressing into the sign of Cancer. She is leaving Gemini, where she was kind of flighty and bouncy and flirty and loving all the people and wanting to just have fun and kind of sort of dip her feet into all the different things. Now we're in a definitely different place in the sign of Cancer. So Venus, just as a recap, has a lot to do with harmonizing things, has to do with things that are beautiful, has to do with coming together, the sensual self, the sensual life. So this is how we express ourselves through senses. It's all about attracting and bringing things into ourselves. It can be indulgent, in its kind of the largest sense. It really has to do with love and desire and the physical things, all of the things that feel good, that taste good, that look good, art and music and pleasure. So that essentially is Venus. Now moving into the sign of Cancer, Cancer is ruled by the moon. So Cancer in a lot of ways is this emotional place because the moon kind of holds our emotion. The moon goes through all of the signs every single month. So it's always changing and expressing itself in a different way. Cancer is a water sign. So it's deeply emotional. It's deeply intuitive. It's a cardinal sign. So it's a starter. It starts, and essentially Cancer season kicks off the summer. It's at the highest point of light that we have here, at least in the northern hemisphere. And so there's this idea of kind of starting something, even though we know that we're going to be losing light as we go until at least the winter solstice. Family, home, nostalgia, memories, things that are traditions, all of those things are Cancerian in nature. It's very protective. It's a lot of mama bear energy. It is nurturing. It can be associated with the archetype of the nurturing mother, but also sometimes the archetype in its more challenging aspect, the helicopter mom who's constantly all over you and telling you what to do and never giving you a minute's rest, so to speak. There's a little codependency that can come with that too, as it's really looking to have security, and once Cancers feel very secure, then they're able to give a whole lot. So we can see that Venus now is moving into a place where she wants more stability, she wants more connection. She wants connection for a longer period of time so we can really grow and build some things, as Cancer is also very creative in and of itself. So this is going to be a really good time for creatives, especially creatives who use their emotional selves to kind of put into their art. It should be a beautiful time. So some of the positive things about this particular aspect is that it's a lot about family and about closeness, about friends who are family, about the people that are in your inner circle, protecting them, nurturing them, uplifting them. At times it can be a bit clannish, it can feel like a me against them. It can feel like, my family, I'm looking out for my people and not necessarily for everyone else. But now that we have Venus in Cancer, Venus has this quality of wanting equality and wanting harmony and wanting to compromise and bring everybody together. Everything that's emotional that's happening, whereas before when Venus was in the sign of Gemini, was filtered through the mind, through ideas. Now we have a filter that's coming through the heart. So it's heartfelt, it's heart-centered. It definitely is feeling things. It's intuitively kind of walking through life, intuitively making decisions, intuitively falling in love. It's all about how I feel at this moment. So you definitely see a shift where you're more dropped into the body, because the moon has a lot to do with the body, and you're negotiating how you want to live your life, and you're really kind of sort of following your dreams. We do have that quality with that, following what's in your heart and what you want to do. You might find that during this time that you feel like beautifying your home, you especially that we're in Mercury retrograde right now, you might be cleaning and sorting and throwing out boxes and throwing out broken things, and then you look and you're like, okay, that corner is empty. I just got rid of the rug. What are we going to do? So you're going to probably buy that new rug. You're going to want to beautify your space because Venus is in there. So creating a home, which is very different than a house. A house is a place, where a home is a place where your things are, where your memories are, where your pictures are, and all of that. If you're thinking about moving, you might be dreaming up what your ideal home is, or what type of home you want to build, or the place that you want to live in. And so home becomes really important as a place where you can really just like allow yourself to grow some roots for your family. Also carving out a space maybe for the kids to play, or carving out like a comfortable, like beautiful space that feels good, a place maybe for you to gather with friends outside. So that can mean like buying new like lanai furniture so that you can have gatherings outside or something like that, or even just buying things that like, you know, promote people gathering and family gathering and getting together. So some of the challenging things that can come out of this aspect is deep emotional thinking. Thinking, which is like essentially, since you're filtering everything through your emotional self, it's really hard. You're not really using your mind. You're not using the logical mind. You're thinking so much about how you feel about a situation that it could cloud your thoughts in terms of making good decisions. So, you know, we definitely want to use our intuition. We definitely want to have deep emotions about things, but we also want to look at what's logical and what makes sense, because then we make better choices and we're a lot less manipulated. Sometimes when we're very emotionally driven, it's very easy for people to come in and emotionally manipulate us. So that's one thing that you want to think about during this time. Another challenge, I think, with this type of quality, especially with Venus there, is forgiveness becomes very challenging. You know, if you hurt someone, if you wound this Cancer energy, it very much creates a wall and it's hard to kind of sort of get back in. So forgiveness becomes a bit challenging with this. And, you know, when you don't forgive, you're kind of holding on to something. And we already talked about that aspect of holding on to nostalgia, holding on to good memories and family memories. And that's wonderful when you're thinking about those things, but when you're holding on to hurt and you're holding on to pain and you're not able to release that, it's really hard to move on and trust someone else again and let somebody else into your heart. In wanting to create a beautiful space and wanting to create home and wanting to create a place that feels good for everybody, there can be a lot of spiritual bypassing or toxic positivity where you're thinking so much about the beautiful space, my beautiful life, my beautiful family, my beautiful all of these things, that you kind of lost touch with reality and the reality of that things are not always okay. The kids are sometimes depressed. They don't want to talk to you. You're having issues with your husband. Whatever the situation may be or whatever it is that's going on, it might not necessarily always be the most positive, beautiful thing. That becomes difficult because you want to create this beautiful, wonderful space. And by not addressing the elephant in the room, you're just kind of ignoring it. And then that can actually make it bigger and make situations much more difficult. So our next aspect that I'm really excited about is Venus trining Jupiter. So this is really fantastic because those are our two benefic planets, and Venus will be in the sign of Cancer and Jupiter is in the sign of Pisces. So what we have is each planet is in the exaltation of the other planet, and that is called mutual reception. So think of it as like each planet is in the fantasy island or the fantasy vacation spot of the other planet. And so they're just basically living their best lives while they're having this conversation, which is a trine, which is like creates the most synthesis of all the different angles or aspects that we have. And this is really a positive aspect. And it's going to be something that I'm hoping is going to offer as like a balm to some of the more challenging aspects that we have this month. We have it for about a week. That's going to be happening 31st all the way through the 6th, but it perfects on the 3rd. So we're going to feel that in a really deep way. Finding joy, happiness, love, connection, optimism. Jupiter has such an optimistic outlook and energized outlook on life and how it wants things. Being in a really beautiful creative space, I think, is something that's going to be nice. Positive conversations. If you've had somebody, especially because, you know, we're in Mercury retrograde right now, and it's been difficult to communicate, or it's just been feeling like a little bit off, or you've been having kind of arguments or just kind of an oppositional time with people in your life, this is a really good, you know, couple of days that we have with this particular aspect where it could be good reconciliation time. It's a good time to come together, actually a great time to get married, a great time to make a commitment to somebody. But even if it's been something that's been rough, it's a good time to kind of lay down your swords and come together and say, okay, how are we going to work this out? Like, let's work this out for the benefit of both of us. So it's just really super positive energy all around. You could take a vacation, especially with Jupiter involved, you know, to a beautiful, luxurious, like warm tropical place, like where I live in Hawaii. But just like traveling abroad can be a huge thing because Jupiter does kind of rule long distance traveling. It's about self-love. Expect miracles, expect gifts, expect money, expect approval for the home loan or whatever, like good news coming at this time. And also like the love or the good news or the gifts that you can give to someone else too. So it does have this kind of pay it forward quality as you're receiving. receiving, you're also giving. So there's that quality to it. The only thing that I would warn against, I know I always like to give like kind of like a caveat for like all of these transits, and I'm just like, this is such a benefic, beautiful one, but I guess overindulgence, because that's something that can happen with Jupiter. Venus also can be very self-indulgent. It can be a bit stingy at times, like in its most extreme negative form, and very possessive of the things that it has. Like, I don't want to share, you know, type of quality. So those are things that might come up if it's like badly aspected in your chart. But for the most part, I'm hoping that this is going to be like a really beautiful transit that's going to kind of offset what we're about to talk about, which is
Mars in opposition to Pluto,
which we're going to feel today, 6/1, today, January 1st until the 9th. And this is perfecting on the 5th. Mars is in the sign of Cancer, which is debilitated, which we talked about in a video I had a while back. And it's opposite Pluto, and Pluto is in Capricorn. So we're going to break this down a little bit. So with Mars, we have separation. We have passion also. We have fiery type energy. We have just an intensity of passion and feeling. We have volatility. There can be like a masochistic quality to it that can be quite violent, that can be forceful, especially since Mars is in Cancer right now. It's the violence and the volatility that has to do with the home, that has to do with women's issues, that has to do with children and things like that. So those are the things, you know, when we have this debilitated Mars, which we've been feeling. It's been kind of violent and unsafe in traditionally safe spaces where you have family. And I use family in a very archetypal way. Family can be your immediate family. Family can also be like your extended family of all the people that are related to you, but you can have your work family, right? Family of people where you believe a certain same political ideologies. That kind of feels like a family or a group that you belong to. So family essentially is like groups, you know, and these safe groups that we typically have, they're having this violence, you know, kind of being asserted in those type of spaces. And that's what happens with a debilitated Mars. Now, Pluto is all about control and about power, also about transformation. It could be the big breakthrough that you needed to kind of get over something that was holding you back in a very like aggressive type of way. It's about things that are unseen coming to the surface. So there's a lot of secrets that are had during that time, that during these kind of transits that come to the surface, that become revealed. It has to do with passion, with sensuality, with sex, also with criminals, government, you know, people who are in positions of power. So one of the things that I was thinking about as I was just writing this up and I was looking at this transit was just one of the stories that just recently broke about the Kamloops, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Indian reservation, where they uncovered over 200 bodies of children that were in this school, you know, and people don't exactly know what happened, and they want to identify them and all of that. And it's a big thing in terms of the government or who was in charge of the school and what was happening and why something like that happened to all of those children. So this is one of those things that you talk about, like the bones in terms of Capricorn is often associated with the bones or with the skeletal matter, and Pluto and things that are hidden and things that are death and rebirth type of quality. And so the bones, you know, almost tell this story of what happened and what the atrocities are. And so like literally this story broke right when we're going into this aspect, and these are the type of things that are associated, you know, with that. And I just wanted to bring that up because one, it's an atrocity and it needs to be reconciled, and two, these are the type of things that you kind of sort of surface and you see. And when we're talking about like safe spaces for women and children no longer being safe, and that's what happens when we have this Mars Cancer dealing with Pluto and Capricorn. So the challenges with this aspect are everything is instinctual. There's no compromise a lot of times. It is the energy that you can take to push through anything, but it is also the energy that you'll push through anything no matter the cost. By any means necessary, it doesn't really matter. It really feels like a pressure cooker time, like you're just waiting for tick, 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 boom. There oftentimes is a physical aspect with this, you know, like Mars is a very physical sign. It rules athletes. It rules like, you know, surgeons, people that have to do with like things with the body and with pushing the body, so to speak. Like good Mars placements are people who make traditionally good fighters, good athletes, people, if you're trying to climb something like a big mountain or something, I would do that in a time where Mars is like well aspected. It gives you the energy and the endurance and the power to do that. But also when when it's in a debilitated state like it is right now and it's opposite Pluto, that you can be using the power and using that virility and using all of that energy for not so good means. Jealousy, power struggles, especially with Pluto, upending dynamics, especially like government things. So I really feel like around this time, especially specifically on the 5th, we could potentially see some sort of structure upheaval, especially because we have that Saturn-Uranus square that's happening next week. So we're kind of sort of on this roller coaster ride where we're going up to the top, you know, the rickety wooden roller coasters, we're going up to the top, you know. And so we have these two big kind of tough aspects that are happening, which I'm hoping is going to be buffered by Venus and Jupiter, but it's just experiences that we will have, and these things will, you know, be around. It's fiercely being protective and looking out for yourself, because Mars is very much I am energy. It's I'm looking out for me, what's best for me as an individual, what I want to do, not necessarily thinking about the collective. And I feel like whenever you're not thinking about the collective, you run the risk of doing reckless things because you're not caring about what other people think, but you're thinking about yourself. Some of the positive, because again, you know, we do have negative aspects, you know, but there are positive things, and we can actually try to use the energy in that way so that we're not putting the negativity out in the world. If you have an internalized battle, if you're dealing and struggling with something, especially something that is secretive, something that you don't feel comfortable with telling people, something that you're deeply ashamed of, this is a good time to conquer that thing, to reach out and get the help that you need, to be active and kick your vice. Really good time for that. Not a good time to internalize it and go deeper into it. Time to say, you know what, this is it. I'm putting it out there. I'm letting people know, and I'm asking for support and for help. So it can be a great time for a person who was a victim of something or victimized by something to raise themselves up and really kind of throw off that, and then actively move towards healing themselves. Because remember, Pluto does have that transformative quality and that regenerative quality, like I lost the tail, I'm going to grow a new one. So you can empower yourself, even though it does feel like kind of dark, negative energy. And also healthy competition in a positive way. I mean, some people just need to rub up against other people so that they can be their best selves, so that they shine. That's just the way that some people are built. They're built to be competitive. That's how they are able to access that magic within them. And so for those of us who have that quality, that like good, healthy, you know, structured, but like strenuous competition, it can be a really good time for you to kind of get that done. So just a warning to, you know, women and children and family and those type of, you know, situations at this time, not to freak anybody out, but I just want to say be careful, you know, just don't take on any unnecessary risks. This month is not really exactly the time to do that. If you're in a situation, I know I've said this before in my videos, but if you are in a situation where you feel unsafe, where you are being abused, and this would be really for anyone, because anyone can be abused for that matter, then it is up to you to advocate for yourself and potentially for your children, to get some help, to get some support, to get out of that if you can. There's a lot of different hotlines or resources, which I will put down below, to help you out if you find that you're in a situation where you need to get out and you feel like no one's believing you or listening to you. Definitely know that there are resources and there's support for you, especially when we're coming against these really harsh transits. Want to pay attention. If you know somebody, if you have friends that are in these unhealthy relationships, if you've seen somebody who has marks on their body and they're making excuses or they're kind of shying away from it, we know what that is. I know a lot of times we feel like you don't want to be intrusive, you don't want to be offensive, you know, but that can save a life, that can save a child, that can save a human being from being in abusive situations. And remember, abuse is not just something that's physical, even though we're looking at that transit, it's also something that can be emotional too. Know that there is support for you out there if you need it. So thank you guys so much for joining in today. I hope that this is going to illuminate your week and help you move forward with everything that you have to do in all of your goals. I'm always here for you every week with your astro forecast, hoping that, you know, this information is supportive for you. And again, if you're interested in getting more detailed in terms of what's going on specifically for you in your chart, what house, what area of your life are these planets speaking to you? make sure that you book a reading with me. I do tarot readings, I do astrology readings, and you can find all of that information at www.thewildwahine.as.me, where we go through your chart very deeply. If you like this video, give it a like, give it a thumbs up, share it, tag people, do all the things, subscribe, you know, all of that. That just helps, you know, promote the content. And thanks so much for tuning in. Love you guys.